The movie camera. Okay. Okay.
That's the big button.
Okay. All right. Let's begin. We talk about making a Tnai in Kiddushin. Last week we talked about Mishpatei Tnaim. You'll see that the foundations that we set last week in terms of the relationship between the Tnai and the Ma'aseh will be relevant in understanding what happens here. And the issue is, can you make a Tnai in Kiddushin, and is it valid after the Nisuin happens? Right, so we have a Gemara here, which is connected to the first source. Let me just get my papers in order here. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I would like to point everyone to... I'm going to have other sheets here. Here. The Gemara talks about the reasoning. If you take this on the first side, if you don't mind, I'll just hold one of these for myself. Okay. The side that says Talmud Bavli Masech Tubot Ayin Bet Amud Bet. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, so it says. Itmar, Kidsha al Tnai, Vikinsa Stam. Okay, man was Mekadesh, woman al Tnai, and the Tnai was the way we learned it should be, right, based on last week. Vikinsa Stam. Okay, at the time of the Nisuin, nobody said anything. Okay, it's important to remember that in those days there were 12 months in between the Kiddushin and the Nisuin. Okay, something which may be relevant, in fact, the fact that today they're the same time. Okay, but anyway, Kichal Tnai v'Kinsa Stam, Rav Amar Tzricha Hemenu Get. Tzricha Hemenu Get means even if the Tnai is not fulfilled, and we would normally say that therefore there's no Kiddushin, we assume that the Tnai, we'll see why, that the Tnai is not valid, and therefore no matter what, the Kiddushin is Chal, and Tzricha, and therefore if the woman wants to go free, we require a get. Okay? Everybody understand what that means? So Tzricha Hemenu Get means that the Tnai is no good, and therefore she is Mekudeshet.
Are you sure it's that? Because it seemed like the Rambam said it was Safek.
Oh, okay, 1 second. Hold on. Tzricha Get. Well, don't get into the Rambam. Right, but this is what the opinion means. Yeah, fine.
So you're saying you don't like the pshat of the Rambam.
No. I'm not getting into that yet. Okay, Rav Amar Tzricha Hemenu Get. Ushmuel Amar Einat Tzricha Hemenu Get. Okay, Amar Abaye. Okay, Lo Tema Tamei Derav Keva Shekinsa Stam Ichui Achle L'Tnaei. Do not say that the reasoning, that Rav's reasoning, who says that the Tnai is no good, I'm being very careful. I'm not saying why it's no good. It's just the Tnai is ineffectual for one reason or another. It does not take effect. Don't say the reason is that since at the time of the Nisu'in, and he didn't say anything, that indicates, quote, achuli achle l'tna'ei, whatever that means, okay, that he was mochel the Tnai. Ela Tamid the Rav, the reason of Rav is as follows: L'fisha ein adam oseh be'ilato be'ilat znut. Okay. What does this mean?
We're going to talk about this principle at one point.
Yes, we have to then, and Ezrat Hashem, next week if we have time, right. The principle of ein adam oseh be'ilato be'ilat znut is a cornerstone of the whole question of civil marriage. Okay? So we will be discussing that separately. We will be discussing it a little bit, I hope, today. We'll touch upon it today, but it's not the focus today. Okay, all right. So lo taima tamid derav kem shekinsa stam echli achle l'tna'ei ela tamid derav lefi she'ein adam oseh bilato bilat znut. Okay, if you look at the first source on the page that I sent you in the email, it's page 1. Right, Amar Rav Ula bar Abba Amar Ula Amar Rabbi Elazar Hamakadesh b'milva Baal al Tnai uBaal. Since there was Be'ilah, Tzricha Hemenu Get. Why? In the case of Kaddish b'milveh, we say Eina Mekudeshet. So therefore, the Be'ilah was the Kiddushin. Okay? Pachas Mishav Pruta, she's Eina Mekudeshet. But since there was Be'ilah, so she's Mekudeshet al the Be'ilah. Okay? Al Tnai Ba'al, right? So Chaimenu get why? Also because the Tnai is Batel and there's no, and the Bia is Kiddushin. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay? That's has to go. We'll see in a second. Okay? Rav Yosef bar Abba, Rabbi Menachem, Rabbi Ami, Hamikadesh bepachot mishaveh pruta u'baal tzricha himenu get. Okay, she needs a get. In other words, because when he had at the time of Bia, they had da'at for kiddushin. Why? B'hahu delo ta'i, because everybody knows a man can't be mekadosh one pachot mishaveh pruta. So they know that what they did before was insignificant, and therefore the fact that having Bia now is Kiddushay Bia, right? And what he did, Pachas Mishaveh Pruta, was who knows why he did it, okay? Aval Bahanach Ta'i. Okay, when they talk about Mekadesh B'milveh, so maybe he thinks that it was Kiddushin, and therefore he doesn't have dat to Mekadesh B'bia, he's somech on the Mekadesh B'milveh, right? And therefore there is no Kiddushin now. Amrav Kahana Mishmei De'ula, Mekadesh al Tnayu Ba'al, Tzricha Heimenu Get. Okay? It says that in the case of Mekadesh al Tnayu Ba'al, he does require a get. Zaya Ma'aseh, V'lo Yakoch B'chachamim L'hotzi'ah, V'lo Get. Okay? At least it sounds like they were trying. Okay? But,
that would have been better.
If you were trying, they try. Okay, that would have been a little bit better.
It would have been better
to try. At least they wanted to be motzia without a get. They wanted to be mati her, right? So in any case, so the upshot of the Gemara here is also that the Tnai, something happens to the Tnai, and therefore it's not. The Tnai is in some way not relevant, and that's why tzricha hemenu get. Okay, so the question is why. Okay, why? If the man or the woman, right, stipulated a condition which was made according to Tnai b'nei Gad and b'nei Reuven, that if the man made a Tnai, if the woman has nidarim, right, then I don't want these to be kiddushin, right? And he did it with Tnai b'nei Gad and b'nei Reuven, and then kines, and it turned out that she had nidarim upon her, so she's still mekudeshet. Why should that be? Okay. So here it goes around the two possibilities raised in the Gemara that I read to you before from Ayin Bet Amud Bet. One possibility is the possibility that Abaye negates, but there are other Amoraim who hold that way, that it's kevan shekinsa stam uchule achle l'tna'eh. The other possibility is l'fisha ein adam oseh bilato bilatznot. What's the difference between these two things? Okay, so we have fundamentally two different possibilities of what does the Gemara mean. Okay, the first, let's take a look. The Tosfot Rid. Okay, I'll read it to you. It's not on the page. It's short. Okay, Amar Abaye. I'll read slowly. Okay, this is Tosfot Rid on Ayin Gimel Mid Aleph. Okay. Amar Abaye, lo tema tama derav kevan shekinsa stam achuli achle l'tna'eh, perush, va'afilu k'tuba yeshla, right, that he was mochel l'tnai. El tama derav she'ein adam oseh bilato bilatznut, perush, va'achule achle l'tna'eh gabe kiddushin. Okay, so what is and that's why he was mochel the Tnai. Whereas if he's having relations with her, and it turns out that the Tnai is not fulfilled, and she won't be mikudeshet, so then the biyah is bilat znut. So since ein adam oseh bilato bilat znut, it must be that he was mochel the Tnai. He made a Tnai. The Tnai he thought would be mitbarer before the biyah, and then we would know with the Kiddushin or not. then nothing was mitbarer, so he assumes everything is okay. If he has bia, so he thinks that Tnai is batel. And even if it turns out she does have nedarim on her, for example, I want this kiddushin to be good kiddushin. In other words, there's mechilat hatnai which goes back to the time of the kiddushin, and it's as if she's mekudeshet stam. You with me? It's still achule achle l'tnae, right? According to the Tosafot Rid, if it was just achule achle l'tnae, then that wouldn't be dependent upon the bia. Right? But because ein adam oseh bi'ilato bi'ilat znut, we say achule achle l'tnae. Okay? So it's both opinions hold that what's happening here is either at the knisa l'chuppah or, okay, l'inyan ketubah, let's not get into that right now, but either at the knisa l'chuppah or at the time of the first bi'ah, the Tnai is abrogated, and it's as if she's mekudeshet stam. Okay, as if the Kiddushin I'll go back to the first point. When he gave her the kesef, say, it's as if he gave her the kesef and he didn't say anything, except Har'el mekudeshet li. Right? Okay. That's also the Rambam. Okay, if we take a look at the Rambam, it's the second source here. Perek Zayin Halacha Chav Gimel Chot Ishut. Hamikadesh al Tnai v'chazar achar kama yamim ubitel hatnai. Right? Afa pi shebitlo. We saw this already in terms of bitlo hatnai. Afa pi shebitlo beino leveina without edut l'kiyum hadavar. Shelo b'fnei edim batel hatnai v'harehi mikudeshet stam. Okay. V'chein im haya tnai min ha'isha ubatla oto achar kach beina leveino. Batel Tnai, lefichach, hamikadesh al Tnai v'kines stam. That was our case, right? O baal stam. Okay. Harei zot tzricha get, because we're assuming that what? That the Tnai is batel.
No, that's not what he says. He says shema batel.
Yeah, Shema. Okay, fine. It's a suffix.
Because that seems to like if he didn't. So that's again.
This is it's a suffix. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Afal pi, because afal pi shalom nitkayem atnai, right? She still needs a get. Afal pi shalom nitkayem atnai. Shema bitel atnai kishabal o kines. Right. Shema. Fine. V'chein amikadesh b'chot mishav puta o b'milve v'chazaru baal. Here, he's not talking about kines. It's just baal. Stam b'fnei edim tzricha get. Sha'al bilazo samach, as opposed to being mikadesh al Tnai, where it doesn't say al bilazo samach, right? Because it's not al bilazo samach. It's he was mevatel the Tnai, right? Because right, v'lo alotana kiddushin apsulim, because the case of pachim shavu pruta or kadosh b'milvar kiddushin psulim. So in those two cases, why is she mikudeshet? Because he's mekadesh now bebia, right? As opposed to mekadesh al Tnai, even if there is bia, we don't say he was mekadesh bebia. We say because of ein adam oseh bilato bilat znut, or because of he was mikones, right? He wouldn't have been kones if he wouldn't want to be married to her, no matter what. So we're choshesh that maybe he was mevatel the Tnai. But in the hold on 1 second. He says here, Chazakahi she'ein adam Yisrael haksherim oseh bilato bilat znut, v'arei biyado ata lasota bilat mitzvah. Okay, so because of the chazaka of ein adam oseh ein adam, this is the Rambam's limitation of the chazaka. Ein adam kasher b'Yisrael oseh bilato bilat znut. Okay, because of that chazaka, two things. One, if there was no Kiddushin beforehand, there's Kiddushin now. Okay. If there's Kiddushin al Tnai, yeah, so we say maybe means he's mevatel the Tnai. But you say that by Knisa l'chuppah also, the maybe. Both Knisa l'chuppah and Bi'ah yield a situation, according to the Rambam, of uncertainty. Namely, maybe the person in whose favor the Tnai was made was mevatel the Tnai. And that means, of course, what's the difference between the two situations? That means that she's mekudeshet l'mafreya. Okay? In the case of Pachsim Shava Pruto and Mekadosh B'milveh, and then they had Bia, she's only mekudeshet mishat Bia. It's not l'mafreya. There's nothing l'mafreya. There was no Kiddushin before. Okay? But in the case of Mekadesh al Tnai, she would be mekudeshet l'mafreya, even without the kiyum of the Tnai. Because the Tnai would mochek the Tnai. Right? Yeah.
Does the Shema word mean that if you would mivarer, that he wasn't forgiving of the Tnai, and you could find out that he...
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. So that's Mepharshim L'Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, okay. It could be even if you were sure, but you're only sure because it was Stam, and there's a Chazaka. Right? Hold on. We'll talk about it.
Is the Tosfot Reed explaining Abaye, or is he just passing me against Abaye?
He's not passing against Abaye. No, Abaye is explaining Rav's reasoning.
Right, but if Abaye emphasizes that it's not, Abaye emphasizes Lo Tema Tamid Rav Kevin Shkansa Stam Achule Achle Tnai.
Ella, because of Chazak and Adamus Abilat Obilat Znut. And that's why it's Achle.
So the Tosfot Reed is a reading of Abaye. Meaning it's not a different Gemara.
No, he's explaining Abaye. Okay. Right, so the issue is, according to the Tosfot Reed, and according to the Rambam, and the Ravid here as well, right? Everybody agrees that the chashash here, the concern here is bittul hatnai. Okay? Look at the Ravid. Afa pisha bitlo beino leveina shelo b'fnei eidim batel hatnai. That's the Rambam. V'harei hi mikudeshet stam. Amar Avraham eino kain elam kain kinsas stam be'edim dehavalei kamo shebitel tnao be'edim. The machlok between the Rambam and the Ravid, as we saw last week, is not in what's going on here in the Gemara. What's going on here in the Gemara is that you're concerned that because either of the Knisah L'Chuppah or the Bia, there's Bittul Atnai, and therefore she's Mikudeshet Stam. The Rambam and the Ravid agree on that. What they disagree about is, can you be Mevatel the Tnai Shelo B'fnei Eidim? Right? According to the Rambam, you can. We said that it had to do with the relationship between the Tnai and the Ma'aseh. Right? The Ma'aseh is the Ikar and the Tnai is this little appendage. So you Mevatel the Tnai, you're not Mevatel the Tnai, for that you don't need Eidim. What you need Eidim for is the Kiddushin itself. Okay? Whereas the Ravid puts much more weight on the Tnai as something which opposes the Ma'aseh Kiddushin. Right? And therefore, to be Mevatel the Tnai, you also need Eidim. Okay? But that, as far as we're concerned, is a secondary machloket now. Okay? On the primary point, they both agree that because Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut, we say that he was mochel, or whatever the Tnai was made in favor of, was mochel the Tnai, and therefore the Kiddushin is chal me sha'ari shona, and it was a Kiddushin lelo Tnai. Okay? That's the way the Rambam reads it. Okay? The Rashba, if you look at the continuation of the page that I just gave you, there's a summary of the Rashba quoted here in the Maggid Mishnah. Okay? The second source, in the source after the Rambam. But I'd rather see it with you inside. Let's get the... let's see. So he quotes the Shita that says that because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut, that there's Mechilat HaTnai. Then he himself says, that's the Rambam, the Ravid, and he says like this, he disagrees, okay, okay, Aval Hacha, okay, the first one on the line is Hatam. It's 6 lines from the top. The second word is Aval Hacha. Agree with me? Okay. Aval Hacha, this is the Rashba. Yachol hu sheyomar harei at ki'ilu ein alayich nedarim. This is the meaning of the Mechila of the, listen how he's reading the Mechila of the Tnai. Ukidamrina gabe madir yacholhu latir atzmo shelo al pi chacham. V'omer lo harenu ki'ilu hitkabalti. What is the mechil of the Tnai? The mechil of the Tnai, the way he understands it, it's not that you do away with the Tnai. It's as if the Tnai was mikuyam. Okay? Utmili tuva, if that's how you understand it, which is how he presents it, utmili tuva, the havadai lo amru ke'ilu na'aseh Tnai, ela b'tnaim atluyim b'kiyum ma'aseh. Kigon im titain, she'acholu lomar hareini ro'eh ki'ilu itkabalti. That's when you can say, I'm not doing away with the Tnai, I'm considering the Tnai fulfilled. That's very different. And he says you can only say, I consider the Tnai fulfilled, if there was something you had to do for me. My Tnai was, there was something you had to do for me. And you didn't do it. And I say, you know what, I'm Michael. It's as if you did it for me. So that I can only say if it's something you had to do for me. But if it's some sort of objective situation, al-manachi yirtzeh abba, for example, so I can't say I'm Michael even if your father doesn't want, or my father doesn't want. He doesn't want, you made it tonight, right? But below ta'aseh la'olam, einam mekudeshet ve'einam megureshet. Te'ilu amar menat shelo telchi leveit avich. V'kayotzei bazeh, af al pi shechazaru machal al tna'o, v'amar hareini ki'ilu lo halacht. She would have said his mother, right? Man makes it tonight. You'll never go back to your father's house. Okay? And then he says, you know what? I'm Michael. She went, but I'm Michael. It's as if she didn't go. What do you mean? You made it tonight that she shouldn't go. And she went. You can't say I'm Michael that there's a fact on the ground, right? It's a fact. Even if it's something you have to do for me, we still don't say ela b'harvachat mamon. That's where you can say the mechila is. If I speak it tonight, I'm not tnili matayim zuz, and I say no, I'm mochel. It's as if you gave it to me. So that I can do. Okay? But more than that, you can't do. You can't change the facts. Okay. So what does he say? Therefore, he says that you cannot be talking about mechilat Tnai. That's not what it means. Okay? What the Gemara is saying, right? He says, he gets into a little bit of it's just an argumentative mode, and he says it like 5 times. Ela mishum da amrinan. Okay. Here, if you go down to hold up. Here, towards the end. Zaklal. It's 1, 2, 6 lines from the bottom. First one line is v'charkach. Okay. Zaklal. Kol Tnai shenitkayem b'shat kiddushin, af al pi shebatel achar mikan mikudeshet. V'chol she'ein mitkayem b'shat kiddushin, af al pi shenitkayem lachar mikan eina mikudeshet. You can't change the Tnai. If he made a Tnai, or she made a Tnai, Amenat she'ata ashir, Amenat she'ata kohen, right? Whatever, right? Amenat that you're going to medical school, right? So if at the time he's going to medical school, so then she's Mekudeshet. And if at the time he's not going to medical school, she's not Mekudeshet. And she can't say, I'm Michael, it's Ki'ilu, you went to medical school. That's very nice. A mother would never say that. And it's not Ki'ilu, you went to medical school. And this woman can't say it either because he didn't go to medical school. You can't change the Tnai. Okay? V'zeh gam kein kevan shebishat kiddushin ein tna'o mitkayem shere ein ba'mumin o nidarim שהרי יש בה מומין או נדרים, אף על פי שמחלן ורואהו כאילו אינם, עכשיו הוא שנסתלקו, אבל משעת קידושין היו. Right? No, you look so beautiful, I don't see the big thing growing on your nose, right? Right? So, what?
Only after 20 years.
Okay. So the Rashba's love is blind, right? So the Rashba says you can't be talking about Bittul Tnai at all. So the Rashba, first of all, fundamentally disagrees with what we saw last week in the Shut Rush about Bittul Tnai, where the Rush did this whole thing. They have the Maaseh here and the Tnai over there. Remember? So what is the Rashba? So the Rashba says you can't be Mevatel the Tnai. So what's going on here? What's going on here is because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilat Znut, he's Mekadesh again. Because he doesn't want the Tnai, he doesn't want to be Mekadesh al smach the Tnai. So she's not Mekudeshet because the Tnai was not fulfilled yet. So he's Mekadesh again now. Right? If somebody else came along who's Mekadesh, they could be Mekadesh. He's also Mekadesh. He's Mekadesh B'biyah. And this puts it in line. What he gains here is he puts the case of Mekadesh B'Tanai in line with the other two cases of Mekadesh B'Pachat Nishav Pruta or Mekadesh B'Milveh. In those cases, the first Kiddushin were nothing, and the reason the reason that she requires a get is because there was Kiddushin B'Yah now. And that's the case here also. Because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilat Znut, he doesn't want the Kiddushin al Tanai. So he's Mekadesh again now B'Biyah. Okay, hold on one second. So this is very, very important. Because there's no possibility, according to the Rashba, of ever being mevatel a Tnai. Even if it's been mamon, you never really mevatel the Tnai. You can just say the Tnai is as if it's fulfilled. But you can never mevatel the Tnai. Why is that? This goes to what we talked about last week. We had two ways of understanding the relationship between the Tnai and the Maaseh. Either the Maaseh is autonomous, and against the autonomous Maaseh, you have a condition which sort of fights off the Chalot of that Maaseh. Or when you do a Maaseh al Tnai, it's basically a custom-made Maaseh. You fashioned your own Maaseh. So that's the Kiddushin. A Kiddushin al Tnai is not a Kiddushin which is not al Tnai. This is the Maaseh that was done. It's the Maaseh with this. Normally a Kiddushin is without al menachet nitni matayim zuz or al menachet ein lach mumim or whatever it is. This Kiddushin is al menachet ein lach mumim. It's a different Maaseh Kiddushin. That's what was done. You can't change it. Okay. What you can do is, if she had movements, you can Mekadesh again. Right? So that's what he's saying. Now this is very important. We'll see later, but the whole problem of making a Tnai to save a woman from a husband that doesn't want to give a get, or to save the woman from Yibum, etc., where one of the main problems is, but there was Bia afterwards, there was Nisuin afterwards, there was Bia afterwards, there was continuous Bia afterwards, so there's Bittul HaTnai, that's one way of understanding the Gemara. So the Rashba wouldn't be concerned about that at all. No, but you can't be Mavatal HaTnai. What it's saying here is because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilat Znut, he's Mekadesh again. Okay?
I missed it in the words. I think when we prepared it before, I understood it's like a b'med dvarim amorim. When do you need to get when you're mekadesh al Tnai? When it's the kind of Tnai, when it's a harvachat mamon. But if it's this kind of Tnai, then you don't need to get.
No, it's the
Ki'ilu. Now I understand what you're saying, but okay. I don't see it in the Rashba. Can you show me where it is?
He says the way it works is it's Ki'ilu it kabalti. Okay? And Ki'ilu it kabalti only works with mamon. So that means the Tnai was fulfilled, and she's mekudeshet. Right? In
the Harvachat Mamon.
Right.
So in the case of She'en Alach Mumim, you said then the Kiddushin is called Me'akshav because you had new
Kiddushin, right? That's because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato. Because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato, Bilat Znut. So there's a new Kiddushin.
Does it say that explicitly?
Yeah, one second. V'achshav hu shenistakov b'shat Kiddushin ayu. One second. The last line. The last line that I printed here. Hab mechilat Tnai she'achshav hu shenimchal u'b'shat hakiddushin hayu aleha Eina mikudeshet. Okay, so then why is she mikudeshet?
I thought she wasn't Mikudeshet.
No, because he says tzricha imenu get. This is all to explain Rav. Rav says tzricha imenu
Yeah,
get.
but I understand that he was talking about in the case where the Tnai is a Tnai of Har'el Mamon, tzricha imenu get. If it's a
No,
case
no, because the case here is not a case of Har'el Mamon. So he says, one second. One second. Yesh lomar datu Rav el Rav kitzestam k'tuba. Elatame de Rav le'inyan get mishum she'en adam oseh bilato bilad znut u'ba'al l'shem kiddushin. I'm sorry, it's not the part that I printed. I cut it off first, right? It's like the next line in the Rashba. Okay? I'll read it again. Okay? Elatame de Rav le'inyan get mishum she'en adam oseh bilato bilad znut u'ba'al l'shem kiddushin. Okay? It says, don't say achule achle l'tnai. What? How could you have a chmichel tnai? Just talk about the ksuba. You know what? Even though she didn't fill the tnai, he'll give her the ksuba anyway, because that he can do. That's achule achle l'tnai. I'll give her the ksuba anyway, right? You can be mochel mamon. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the kiddushin themselves. We're talking about le'inyan get, and it's because of ein adam oseh bilato bilad znut. We're not talking about mechila. We're talking about ein adam oseh bilato bilad znut. And this Be'ilah is a Bilat Kiddushin and not a Bilat Znut. So he's Mekadesh with the Kiddushin, right? Uba'al l'shem Kiddushin. Afal pi sheyesh alei nidarim. Aval le'inyan k'tuba b'tna'ei kai. She loses the ksuba. She'im yimtzu alei nidarim tetzei shelo b'ktuba. Okay? So...
But she loses the ketubah because...
So he made it tonight.
But then he had Kiddushin a second time. Those Kiddushin weren't meaningful. Then he has it. Then he had
But that Tnai, he still wants on that. He wants that Tnai. He wants the Tnai for the Mama. So if he's Mochel, he can be Mochel. If he wants to be Mochel, he doesn't want to be Mochel. He doesn't want to be Mochel. But the Bia is the Kiddushin.
She's Mikudeshet, but she doesn't get a ketubah.
Right, if the Tnai is not fulfilled. But that's not our issue. He knows that the Tnai, he makes a Tnai. He doesn't want to give a Ksuba.
Like if you that Kiddushin was meaningless, and now you have a new Kiddushin, and it comes with a cost.
But the Tnai is only with regards to the Ksuba, not with regards to the Kiddushin. Because the Kiddushin was made with Lelo Tnai because there's Kiddushin Bia here, because Ein Adam Oseh Bilat Bilat Znut. I don't want to talk about the Ksuba, that's not our issue. Okay? But what he's saying is that she's Mikudeshet Mikan Ve'elach because there's Kiddushin Bia. Not because there's Bittul Tnai. It is impossible to be Mevatel Tnai, except you can say Ki'ilu et Kabalti in Dinei Mamonot. Okay?
What doesn't he make his Bilat too? Because if you
What?
go Eli Shabbat to Bilat.
But then, but he did it because they did it at Tnai, and she agreed that should be the case, and she maybe misled him, etc. Her case is a woman loses a ksuba, right? Okay.
So the Rashba doesn't disagree with the Rush.
Oh, sure. He fundamentally disagrees with the Rush.
No,
The
but
Rush says you can be
they
mevatel a Tnai.
That you can be Mevatel.
The Rush says you can be mevatel a Tnai afterwards, right? What was the case in the Rush? That they made an agreement that if he goes on a business trip, he doesn't come back for 12 months, right? That there should be no Kiddushin. And before he left, she said, you know what, I'll give you 2 years. So it's basically a mechila of the Tnai, and there's like a new Tnai. She extended it. So the question that he was asked was, can he do that? They both agreed. We changed the deadline. Or they mavato the whole thing, right? So the Rush says, yes, you can do it, right? But the Rashba would say, well, if he didn't come back, he didn't come back. Can't say Ki'ilu he came back if he didn't come back, right? There's no Ki'ilu hit Kabalti, right? You can only do that, he says, fundamentally, in Dinei Mamonot. Right? Almanach Titnili Matayim Zuz, say, you know what, forget it. So it's Ki'ilu hit Kabalti. As if you gave me the Matayim Zuz.
There's no Mechila.
According to the Rashba, in principle, there's no way to erase a Tnai that was made b'shat Maaseh. You can artificially say under certain circumstances that the Tnai was fulfilled, but you cannot erase it. Right? Whereas according to the Rambam, you're talking about erasing the Tnai. And it's ki'ilu kidesh stam, as if he was makadosh without a Tnai.
Wait. Is that really what the Rosh was saying? Because there's
So-
this other case there. You can, if you would bring in witnesses and you would be mochel al the Tnai, and there wasn't the ilah. So then the Rosh was
If they're what?
Say they didn't. He was mekadesh al Tnai, v'lo ba'al v'lo kanas.
Oh, lo ba'al, so then there's just the Tnai,
And
and
then
there's
it's
no
just-
new Kiddushin.
But then he could be mochel, and he could bring in witnesses, and he can be
There's-
mochel al the Tnai, and then he can.
There's no mechila of the Tnai. You can't be mechila of Tnai. There's Kiddushin, al Tnai. If the Tnai is fulfilled, then there's Kiddushin. If the Tnai is not fulfilled,
He
there's no
doesn't
Kiddushin.
agree neither with the Rambam nor with the Raida. There's
No.
such thing.
There's no state of bittul at Tnai. You can have kilut kabalti. That's not bittul at Tnai. That's the fulfillment of the Tnai. Okay. The major nafkamina here is whether, certainly between the Rashba and the Rambam, is whether you need a dut l'kiyum davar. Right? According to the Rashba, since the bia is kiddushin, so you need a dut l'kiyum davar. According to the Rambam, because there's bia, we're choshesh, there's mavatal the Tnai. Bittul Tnai doesn't need a dut l'kiyum davar. Okay? According to the Ravid, there's no nafkamina, because the Ravid holds that bittul Tnai also needs a dut l'kiyum davar. But if you hold like the Rambam that bittul Tnai doesn't need a dut l'kiyum davar, but certainly kiddushay bia needs a dut l'kiyum davar, so that's a major nafkamina. Okay. Also, from mi'ezah sha'ahi mekudeshet, if she's mekudeshet misha'a rishona, if you talk about bittul hatnai, so she's mekudeshet misha'a rishona. If you talk about kiyum hatnai, or if you talk about a new kiddushin, she's only mekudeshet misha'at kiyum hatnai, or misha'at kiddushin, hashniyim, right? There was no kiddushin rishonim, but just kiddushim shniyim. Okay? Yeah.
The sheet of the Rashba would only be coherent if you paskin that relationships between two pnuyim is asur d'oraita, right? Because otherwise the whole
What?
it would only be coherent if you say that a relationship between two pnuyim is asur d'oraita, because if it's derabanan, then ein adam sabila tobilat znut, or he's over a derabanan of being mekadosh for bia, or over a rabbanan relationship. Why flip his rabbanan from one to the other? Who cares?
Okay, fine. We'll see. We'll talk about that also.
But why
Yeah, okay.
you could say in a demosabila tobila tnut even if it's only an Isser Drabanan.
No, but it's an Isra about the Kaddish Babia, but that came afterwards.
Oh, okay.
There's Rav. It's the beginning of the Amoraim. Rav Mangid Amand the Kaddish Babia. Rav would give Malchus if it was Kiddush Bia.
And this is also Rav.
Right, there's also Rav.
It was in
Exactly
Daf
when.
Yomi.
What?
It was in Daf Yomi.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I hope it was only in Daf Yomi. It didn't really happen, but anyway. Okay. Let's talk a minute about Ein Adam Oseh Bilat o Bilat Znut. Okay? Right, to sum up, it's really a very short summary of what we've done until now. Are we choshesh for Bittul HaTnai, and is it at all possible? Okay? So from the language of the Gemara, it could be that we say that he was Mavatal the Tnai. Okay? That's, of course, in the Rambam, it's maybe he was Mavatal the Tnai. And according to the Rashba, it's not possible to be Mavatal the Tnai, and there's just new Kiddushin, there's new Kiddushay Bia. Okay? Let's talk about this klal of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilat Znut. Okay? So let's take a look at the Rambam on the bottom of page 1. Okay, Haru Miktzat HaGaonim. It's Hilchos Gerish and Perek Yud, Halacha Yud Tet, yeah? Haru Miktzat HaGaonim. Shekol Isha Shetibael B'fnei Eidim Tzricha Get Chazaka She'ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilat Znut Vigdilu V'hosifu B'davar Zeh Sha'alal da'atam. Right, you see what the Rambam thinks about this thing that they imagined to be true, right? Ad shohoru shemishi yesh lo ben mishivchato chosheshin lo, that maybe he's Jewish. Right? He's talking about shivcha kna'anit. Right? If a person has a son with a Shivcha Kna'anit, the son is not Jewish, the son is an Eved, right? Because Yahadut goes according to the mother, right? So the son that a person has with Shivcha Kna'anit is not Jewish. So therefore, if he dies without other children, so his wife requires Yibum Uchalitza. And the fact that he might have a son from a Shivcha Kna'anit is not Matzil Ota from Yibum Uchalitza, because his son is not Miyuchas Acharav. Okay? Those are the facts. Yeah? Okay. So there are people, because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut, right? So they wanted to say, so if the person has a child from a Shivcha, Choshishin Lo, we choshish that this child is his, Api Halacha. V'lo, that why? Why would we say that, not that Kiddushin, that the child is Jewish? Why? Because we say, let's see, right? V'lo tityabein ishto. We're going to be matir yivama lashuk, based on the fact that he has a child with this Shivcha Kna'anit. Okay? Shema shichrer shivchato v'achar kach ba'aleha. Because of Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut. So Bia with a Shivcha is an Isser Doraita. So he was Meshachrer Ota. When an Adon is Meshachrer, an Eved Kna'ani, the person becomes Jewish automatically. That's a separate machlokas, whether you need another Tvila Midoraisa or not. Okay? You have to dunk more than once. Okay? But whether you need another Tvila Doraisa, as Machos Rambam and Ravid and Machos Yisrael Bia. He said, because he was saying Shema Shichrerota, because he doesn't have Bia with a Shivcha Kna'anit. So before the Bia, he was Meshachrerota. Okay? And therefore she's Jewish. Okay? If she's Jewish, then the kid is his. The kid is Jewish, and the kid is his. Right? And therefore he's Poter, the other wife, from Yibum.
Where is it usher to have sex with a shikha?
Where is it usher to have sex?
Where
is it? Why it's?
Why is it usher to have sex with a shikha?
That's Biyat Znut.
Because it's Biyat Znut.
Yeah. Okay. V'yesh. Okay. V'yesh mi shehora shevadai shichrer she'ein adam oseh bilato bilad znut. Okay. V'chol hadvarim ha'elu. I'll give you the historical background to this. It's fascinating. What happened? Okay. V'chol hadvarim ha'elu rechokim heim be'enai ad ma'od midarkei ha'hora'ah. Very far-fetched, the Rambam says. V'ein ra'ui l'smoch aleihem. The Rambam had a more realistic view of human nature. He didn't think it was a blank check. Ein adam oseh bilato bilad znut. Shelo amru chachamim chazaka zo ela beishto shegirsha bilvad. Oh, b'mekadesh al Tnai u'ba'al stam shaharehi ishto. U'b'ishto hu shechezkato she'eno oseh bilato bilad znut. Ad sheyifaresh shehi bilad znut. O yifaresh al Tnai hu boel. Aval b'shar nashim harei kol zona b'cheskat sheba'al shem znut ad shifaresh hu l'shem kiddushin. I'm not going to say any time there's sex outside of marriage, you can say it's kiddushin. What is sex outside of marriage? It's chazaka that it's a bilat znut, right? Unless they say it's kiddushin, right? Aval b'shar nashim harei kol zona b'cheskat sheba'al l'shem znut ad shifaresh hu l'shem kiddushin. ואין צריך לומר בשבחה ובגויה שאינה בת קידושין, שאין חוששים להם כלל. So he has to do things. The שחרר אותה, וקידש אותה. Is everybody crazy? Right? שאין חוששים לכלל. והרי הבן מהם בחזקת גוי ועבד, עד שיודע בוודאי שנשתחררה עמו, או נתגיירה. Okay? You want to know some history? You know what happened? This is a true story. Okay? It was Bavel in the 8th century. Okay? Omar, as in the Dome of the Rock, Omar. Okay? He was very friendly with the Reish Galuta. Okay? And he conquered Persia. It was the Muslim conquest of Persia. So what they used to do, just like they did in the time of the Megillah, of Megillat Esther, is that the winning side, in this case the Muslims, they took the princesses of the losing side, right? That's why Vashti was Bavlit, right? And Achashverosh was Parsi. The Persians took over, right? And they took the Babylonian princesses for wives, and that's why Vashti's not listening to Achashverosh threatens the Malchut, because it's not a woman's uprising, it's a Babylonian uprising, right? The Babylon, what she says to him, right? You just worked in Nebuchadnezzar's, my grandfather's, in the barn, right? So anyway, the Persian princesses were taken by the Muslim conquerors. So Omar took one princess for himself, and the Reish Galuta, his good friend, he gave her a Persian princess, and he had a child with the Persian princess. Okay, but of course he had a Jewish wife. Now you can imagine what went on there, right? This is the Reish Galuta. So now, when he died, he had two lines. And this is what happened. The children from the Jewish wife said, I'm the Reish Galuta. And the child from the Persian princess said, I'm the Reish Galuta. So the one from the Jewish wife said, not only am I the Reish Galuta, and you're not the Reish Galuta, you are my Eved, because I was Yoresh you. Because the Persian princess was a Shifcha Knanis. And that makes you an Eved, and you're my Eved. This went on for like 200 years, you understand? He kept going, this machloket, right? So the question revolved, it says in the Otzar Gaonim in Yevamot, the question revolved around Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilato. Was he Meshachrer, the Persian princess, before Bia, and was this kid Jewish? Right? So this made it more explicitly into the Rambam and Hilchot Nachalot. We paskins one way in terms of the laws of Yerusha, and another way in terms of the laws of Yochsin. Okay, so the Rambam is here saying, right? That's why this is a very hot potato. This was a very hot potato. This topic. Okay, so the Rambam says you don't say Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut unless it's within a context where you assume that it's not a context of Bilad Znut. And what he said before is Adam Kasher Mi Yisrael. Right? Doesn't mean anybody. It means if you assume there's a person, quote unquote, normal person, he doesn't want to have a Bilad Znut, and he has relations, we assume that, and he has relations with his ex-wife, so we assume that he was Mekadisher again. He has relations with a woman who gave Kiddushin with Al Tnai, so we assume he was Mavatal the Tnai, because he doesn't want that his Bia should be a Bilad Znut. But someone who Stam has relations with someone else, why should you assume Ein Adam Oseh Bilad Znut? They're having relations, so that's a Bilad Znut, unless you know otherwise. Okay? The Ravid limits the actually expands the parameters beyond the Rambam, but he understands the problem. Let's go to the Ravid. והרי הבן מהם בחזקת גוי ועבד עד שיודע בוודאי שנתגרה עמו נשתחררה. אמר אברהם, בגויה ודאי כן הוא כדבריו. The Rambam is right. If you're talking about he has a relation with a non-Jewish woman, of course you assume the kid's not Jewish. You don't say that she was mitgayer, etc. Okay? שהרי אין בידו לגיירה. אבל בשפחתו שיש בידו לשחררה, דבריהם קרובים, what the Gaonim said makes some sense, right? Because he has control over the situation. There are two ways he can have relations with this woman. It's his choice. He can be Meshachrer Ota, and should be Jewish, or not Meshachrer Ota, and should be a Shifcha Knanit. So if he has a choice, then it's up to him. So we assume he's Meshachrer Ota, right? But if we know that, this type of guy he is, so then of course we don't say it. וכן בת ישראל שתיבעל בעדים, אם לא היו חשודים בפריצות עריות, העמיד בני ישראל ובנות ישראל על חזקתן, ובחזקת כשרותיהן, שלא יתפרסו בפני עדים לזנות. ודברי הגאונים ז"ל קיימים הם. Okay? With regards to a goya, he agrees, but he accepts what the Gaonim say with regards to a Shifcha Knani. Okay? So the Rambam, this is going to be very important for when we talk about civil marriage. The Rambam very much limits Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Bilad Znut to where you're pretty sure that it's not Bilad Znut. In a unique situation where he was ready to Mekadesh the woman, he wants her to be his wife, etc. Right? Not stam a relationship. Okay. Now, this is important for us to understand, because what's the problem of doing Kiddushin al Tnai? Say, if the Beit Din paskins that the husband has to give a get, and if he refuses, or if he tries to extort money, whatever type of Tnaim we would want to make, right? And then, of course, they have that's B'shat Kiddushin, and then there's Nisuin, and then there's Bia. So what are we afraid of? We're afraid of Bitalat Tnai, or that he's Mekadesh again, Lelo Tnai. Okay? And why do we say that? Because of Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut. Because what's going to happen? What are we afraid of? Right? What does Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut mean? That if the Tnai is Lo Mikuyam, then the relations that they have will be defined as Bi'ilat Znut. If the Tnai, so he doesn't want that, because there's a chance. Let's say Almanat she'ein lalayich mumin, right? Almanat that you have $100,000 in the bank, right? You can make all sorts of tnayim. So at the time of the bia, since there's a chance that it's not true, he's one way or another. Either he wants to mekadesh again, or he's mochel on the tnai. Okay, so that she should be mekudesh at 100%, because he doesn't want the possibility should be ilatot, yeah, be ilat znut. Right? That's where the chazaka applies. Now, it becomes important then to look at the case and say, well, would it be a be'ilat znut if the Tnai wasn't fulfilled? Or maybe it still wouldn't be a be'ilat znut, depending on what type of Tnai we're talking about. So we have to look at the situation and say, do we have a situation where we will say, Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut, or maybe this situation, you don't say, Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut, because it wouldn't be, for some reason, considered a Bi'ilat Znut, or the Chazaka doesn't apply, and therefore, he wasn't Mekadesh again, or therefore, he wasn't Mevatel the Tnai, and the Tnai is still Kayam. Are you with me? What I'm looking for? Okay. Take a look at the Meiri raises a possibility. It comes up in the Nosei Ken L'Shulchan Aruch also, but the Meiri just says, it's one line here. The Meiri in Ketubot, he says, yeah. Oh, here it is. Shekitsha al Tnai ul'achar zman kinsastam. That's what we're talking about. Demidilo kanas samuch lekiddushin v'lo idkar tnaei b'shat knisa gali adate da'achle. So he says the situation that we're talking about of achle l'tna'e is the way it used to be in the time of the Gemara. That there was Kiddushin, and then they waited. They gave 12 months for the woman to get ready and to prepare the Suda, and then there was Nisuin. So he did the Kiddushin, that was 11 months and 28 days ago. And he did a Tnai. And now they're getting married, and he doesn't say anything. So there were choshesh for bittul ha-Tnai. But if you're standing under the chuppah, and the Shat Kiddushin, he goes through the whole thing on the Tnai, and then 3 minutes later they have Yichud, there you're not choshesh that he's mevatel the Tnai. Okay. Notice the element of time here, this is not because of Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut, it just, let's put it this way, the Ein Adam Oseh Bi'ilato Bi'ilat Znut is not a vadai, it's a suffix. The way, especially the way the Rambam has it. So there could be other evidence or other circumstantial evidence or circumstances that push you to believe that nonetheless, even though nonetheless he wants this Tnai and he wasn't mevatel it, or he wasn't mekadesh again, right? Because It's right afterwards. He said the Tnai, and right afterwards they got married. And right afterwards there was Nisuin. So you have no reason to believe that he's Mavatel the Tnai. The only reason you say he's Mavatel the Tnai, he's Mekadesh 11 months ago, and now there's the Nisuin, and he didn't mention it.
What about all the subsequent Beilot?
What?
What about any subsequent Beilot? Can't he be Mavatel the Tnai if we say in Lam Sabila Tobilat Znut? It's not just about the time of Chuppah or the Cheder Yichud or something like that. It's
So he
a
doesn't
subsequent
think
marriage.
that. I understand that there are those that say that, but I don't think that makes sense. There are those that say we'll see.
But if the principle is in Lam Sabila Tobilat Znut, there's no
But it's not Vadai. The question is, was he Mavatel the Tnai, or do we say in Amos Bilato Bilaznut? So if I have no reason to think that, if I think, well, you should have mentioned it, and he didn't mention it, so could we be somech on the fact that he made the Tnai beforehand, or do we say no? Amos Bilato Bilaznut, and he was Mavatel the Tnai? It must be he was Mavatel the Tnai, right? I have to choose, right? But if he made the Tnai now, and he didn't say anything, so of course he was somech on what he just said.
But if our logic is premised on Ein Damos Sabila Tobilat
No, but you
Znut,
don't understand. It's not absolute. It's not absolute. It's not because anyone don't say Bilad Tobilad Znut, the Tnai is batel. It's because he prefers not to make his Bilad Znut, and since I don't know what he thinks, I assume this is what he wanted. But here I know what he wanted. 3 minutes ago, he made a Tnai in front of 700 guests.
and that first one functions as a test case, and we say, okay, he's willing to make it Bilat Znut,
He's making right, so he's willing to take the chance.
continues.
He just told us
Right.
in front of everybody. He's taking.
Right.
So he wants the Tnai to be Kayam.
Right.
Okay, so that's one element. If you take a look at the Shulchan Aruch here, Lamed Hey, let's take a look. Hamikadesh al Tnai, Siman Lamed Chet, Seif Lamed Hey. Okay, Hamikadesh al Tnai, v'chazar achar kama yamim, ubitel atnai is the Rambam's lashon. V'af al pi shebitlo beino leveina shelo b'fnei edim. Batel atnai v'harei mekudeshet stam. V'chein im haya atnai min ha'isha ubitla oto beina leveino. Batel atnai lefichach hamekadesh al tnai uva'al stam o kinei stam harei zot tzricha get af al pi shelo nitkayem hatnai. Because uchoshesh for the bittul of the tnai, he says explicitly shema bitel atnai kishaba'al o shekines. Okay? V'im kitsha acher, this is a case the Rambam doesn't talk about, tzricha get mishnehem. Right? We don't say bevadai that he was mevatel the Tnai, and therefore she's vadai mekudeshet. Maybe he was mevatel the Tnai. So it's a safek, so she's safek mekudeshet. For her to go free, we need a get. Right? But if somebody else came along as mekadesher, his also is a safek kiddushin, she needs a get mishnehem. Okay? Take a look at the Chalkat Mekor cake. Tzricha get mishnehem. She'af she'ba'al yesh lachush shema al smach tna'o ba'al. V'hu sava she'yitkayem atnai. V'lo tiyabiato bilad znut. You see? Because maybe just because he's mekadosh al tnai doesn't mean for sure that his bilad is a bilad znut. Maybe the tnai will be mikuyam. Right? Talk about making a tnai, the guy will be a creep, right? And the guy will extort money. So he's thinking now, there won't be any reason to be mavata these Kiddushin Mafreya. I won't be a creep. Right? I won't be a creep. So I won't be a creep. So at the time, if the marriage falls apart, I'll give her a get. So in the meantime, we're married until I give her a get. I'm not going to be one of these people that they have, they have to have campaigns in the internet to free my wife. Right? I'm not going to be one of those people. Then they'll be mavata the Kiddushin Mafreya, and this bill will be a bilad znut. I don't think that that's what's going to happen, right? So it's not clear that just because the person made a Tnai, that Tnai means that the Be'ilah is necessarily a Be'ilah Znut. So he's somech on the Tnai that it won't be a Be'ilah Znut. You see? The Be'ilah Znut is not, the Ein Adam Oseh Bilato Be'ilah Znut is not automatically applied in every case. Okay? Okay, so therefore that's what makes it a suffix. Okay? Then he says, Umashma she'im kodem sheba'al nityached ima b'feirush al Tnai harishon, right? Because this is a suffix, because the Ein Adam Aseh Bilato Biladznut, it's a suffix. But what, it's mashma, and it's only kinei stam, because he didn't say anything. But it's mashma, if he